taxpayer wishing to address the board about title programming or any other concern? Raise the public session. Oh, hearing none. We've got a presentation of the budget as presented by Mr. Claypool.
Instead of going down there, maybe I'll just stay here. Might give you a chance to actually see the board a little bit better.
Got the other microphone there.
This works.
Hold on.
I can talk loud.
She's really getting right up.
Gross, I'm trying to get my butt out of here.
I'd like to see that. Can you, Ms. Snell?
Yes, I got quarters.
There we go. Okay, today we are discussing the 23-24 proposed final budget. Today is the proposed final. We have a 30-day review period where we'll have the budget posted on the district website. We'll run copies down to the library, and there'll also be a hand copy in the business office if anybody wants to come take a look at what we're talking about tonight. And then, hoping all goes well, June 19th, we'll adopt the final budget, and then we'll be set to go for 23-24. This year, we're showing revenues, or next year, rather, sorry, we're showing revenues of about 24.1 million, expenses of about 24.1 million, and we have about 12,800 that will show as a surplus that will go towards the fund balance. You can see for 22-23, we're projecting an increase in our fund balances from 1.9 to 2.3 million, and we'll go over that in a couple of minutes here. Here we go. So we have non-spendable, that's kind of all our supplies and inventory kind of things, which is 50,000. We are proposing next year a proposed fund balance, or assigned fund balance of 436,000, which is up from 200,000 is where it's at currently. What we're proposing is taking half of the money that we got from the basic ed funding stream this year, where we were one of the higher percentages in the state, and putting it away in case we have more years like next year when we're one of the lowest districts in the state in terms of percentage increase of the state fund money, basic ed. And then our unreserved fund, we're allowed to have 8% there, and we're going to be within that next year as well. That's going to go from 1.656 to 1.834 million. So, next slide, please. This kind of just gives you the idea of our fund balances, where we've been and where we're at now. Sitting here tonight, it kind of reminds me, 16-17, I started in late February. The first budget that year, we had a fund balance of negative 710,000, and that was also the year where we had a major thunderstorm and downpour the night of the budget presentation. So the lights went out, the roof leaked into the building here. There was a stream of water running straight down the stairwell next to us. And we've gone from there. We've fixed the roof, and we're at 1.9 or 2.3 projecting this year, and right around that next year. From the revenue side of things, you can see we're projecting, this year we had 23.9, next year we're projecting 24.1. Our last audited year, 21-22, we were at 21.9. So a modest revenue increase this year, about 180,000. And the sources, and we'll get into a little bit more detail here in the next slide, but you can see the source breakout. Local goes up a little bit, state goes down, or state goes up a little bit, and then the federal goes down because of a decrease in the ESSER funding that we're booking. The local revenue sources, basically there's two things that are driving the local revenue going up. One is real estate taxes. We're asking for a tax increase of 1%, which is a little over $500,000. $500,000 is roughly $60,000, and that's kind of what we're asking for there. The other piece in local that we don't have on the slide, but that makes a big difference, is the interest. Last year when we were doing interest, it was like 0.01, and now we're back into realistic interest rates, so we're doing better there than we had projected last year, so we're going to bring that forward into next year. State revenue, basic education subsidy, the BEF. What we have, and I wanted to point this out to everybody, is there's basically two pots within this basic ed and also within the special ed. One is your base funding. That can't change. It can never go down. At this point, it's not going to go up because of the state funding formulas. And we're set forever at $5.7 million. The part that changes is the formula distribution part. And you can see over the last 3 years, 21, 22, we had almost 700,000. It doubled last year. And when we budgeted, we only had a 5% increase in this, and it ended up being closer to 10%. So it went up quite a bit more than we had budgeted. There was a lot of question last year around state budget time, what was going to actually come through. And so this year you can see it goes up about $30,000. So there's a couple of things that drive that. There's more than a couple. There's probably 25 things that fund that formula distribution, but the two biggest pieces are, or the two biggest things that influence this is one, our average daily membership, which, number of kids days we have, and that's been going down over the last 3-4 years. That runs a couple of years back, so it's just getting into the COVID years now. And the other piece, which is actually a bigger driver, is it's based from the American Community Survey, and they pull information off of that survey, including the number of people who are at poverty level, and 100% of poverty level, or 200% of poverty level. And last year, our percentage was 32%. Which gave us an extra boost in this funding stream, which is why it went up so much further than what we had expected. For this year, the poverty piece went down to 18%, so it dropped from like 32% to 18%. And it's the odd thing about it is it's a 5-year rolling average, so being a math person, you don't get that kind of average. That's significant a drop with an average unless you're using very few, people in the survey. So I've reached out to our state organization, PASBO, to try to get some more information into that, like how many people from this area are included when they talk about those surveys, to develop those numbers, because it's counterintuitive to what we're seeing. We've qualified for district-wide free lunch in the last year and different things like that. So it doesn't make sense in our head, but we don't have the firm data yet to be able to say, yes, it was because we had 5 people on average from 18 to 22, and then it dropped to 3 or something like that. So those are the biggest drivers on the basic ed side of things, and you can see we had a $730,000 gain last year, and a $30,000 gain this year, and a $30,000 gain going into next year. Special ed's kind of the same thing, except we get a little bigger piece of the pie than we do in the state side, or on the basic ed side. So there's also a base fund that we're always going to get forever. That's $724, and then formula distribution sets out the rest of it, and we're going to get about 100,000 more than we got last year, which was about 100,000 in the year before. So that's popped up by 200,000 over the last 2 years, so that's one of the places. And one of the other things that's interesting about the formula distribution funds is it's basically like a big pizza with 500 districts going for slices, and so every So you're basically going against every other school in the state, so in terms of this money. So it changes very frequently, and so, you know, those numbers always go. So it's not just a SARE thing, it's a statewide thing. On the expense side, just kind of going through some of the things. Regular education expenses go up about 100,000. The special ed goes up a little bit more. That's because we've rolled the occupational therapist, which you guys voted for a little, you know, a month or so back, into the district portion of the budget as opposed to being contracted out. Voc Ed, about the same, goes down just a hair. Other instructional goes up a bit, and that is mainly because of the new Redskin Academy that Trish has mentioned a few times at board meetings, where we're meeting with some kids after school to do some things, and then also we put some extra money in for summer school because we may try to do something a little bit different there next year as well. Next slide, please. So other expense lines, student services goes up a bit. That's, we have put a new position in. It's not an additional position, but it's a different position, and we're going to look for a behavioral specialist type position. So we're not adding to the total number of professional staff, but it just shifted from one line into this line. For next year, instructional staff goes down a bit. That's basically because of the communication person that was part of the admin staff, that position's gone from here for next year. Everything else runs pretty much in line with what you'd expect down through there. Maintenance goes up almost 100,000. The vast majority of that is electric. Our electric rates, you know, not quite doubled, but got pretty close to doubling, so we had to put a lot of extra money in to cover that next year. And then you can see transport tech. So next slide, please. And then student activities, so that's your clubs, your sports, the FBLA, those kinds of things. And then community services is all the stuff that we do and you all do in the community, along with our like crossing guards and those kinds of things. One thing that dropped from this year to next year is $400,000. That's for the air handler in here, basically, and that goes away. That's all ESSER funded, so it's kind of a zero impact on the budget, but it is a difference in the line if anybody's wondering why. Everything else, debt service, you can see it's about the same. Interfund transfers goes down by 50,000. That's just the cafeteria. We won't need to put as much money over next year. And then we put some money into the budgetary reserves at 60,000. Most of the interfund transfer is how we're handling the ESSER's money. We're taking the money in and we're applying it to salaries and benefits, but then we're taking an equal amount of money and pushing it out into our capital budget, our capital fund, or our committed fund, or those types of things. So that way we're not covering costs within the current budget with money that we know is going to be gone next year. Some schools are doing that, but we don't think it's necessarily a prudent thing to do. This just kind of breaks everything down a little bit different way. So support staff salaries and benefits year to year, professional staff year to year, admin year to year. Again, admin goes down basically because of that communication curriculum kind of position. And then kind of the benefit for everybody else, and you can see what's there. And the total salary benefit cost went up roughly 3.3%. So this is a slide just to give you an idea of salary and benefits compared to everything else, and the everything else is at 33, so 67% is salary and benefits. That's a little understated simply because of all the ESSER money that's coming in and going out in terms of expense when that goes away. that'll be back up to 72-73% salaries and benefits of the district's budget. These next couple of slides are big favorites of Ron's. Peasers. So this looks like it's leveling off, and it is, but if you roll back into the years before 16-17, this number was like 7.5%, 8.2%. And then Peasers got in some trouble and changed some things and raised everything up. So yes, it's kind of stable at this point, but stable at 34% isn't necessarily a good stable. So we do get a little more than half of that money reimbursed to us from the state. It's kind of, I'll never quite understand why, other than the state gets our money, gets to make interest off it, and then they pay us back, a portion of the money back, but it's still at a spot that's way higher than it probably should be. Health insurance, we're 4.6 increase this year. Going into next year, we're frankly pretty happy about that. All things considered, one of the reasons we're talking about possibly putting some extra money into the committed lines here over the next couple of months is, last year was 5.2 or something like that. This year, or next year, will be 4.6. One of these days, we're gonna have an 8%, 9% increase, so we just want to be, planning for that. But for now, we'll certainly take it because the insurance consortium is solid. They've got a good base of funds, and so everybody's pretty comfortable with where we're at currently within the consortium. So that's good news. And this is our projected charter costs. It shows historical, and then what we're showing for next year. Next year, we're budgeting roughly $688,000. That's pretty well in line with the years since COVID hit. You can see prior to COVID, it was significantly lower most years. And this is where we were. We just got 4 or 5 people that I think we were finding out moving into the district. There were people who were charter folks, and so that's probably going to even go up a little bit next year. We're going to have to analyze that over the next month, and that's a number that may change when we get to final that we'll talk about again. So the summary, basically a $12,000, $13,000 fund balance increase. You can see revenues and expense are pretty much the same. We're proposing a 1% school tax increase, which turns to be about 0.565 mils. And we're just noting the federal grant funding of $1.7 million, roughly $1.5 million of that, or $1.4 million of that is ESSER funding. And so after the 23-24 school year, there will be a significant drop, in our revenue, most likely, and our expense because of that, just so people have that on their radar screens. This time I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baker. A lot of hard work goes into that. Your team appreciate it. So moving on to the consent agenda. We have some changes in the consent agenda. Parliamentary procedure tell us. But anyway, so we have the minutes of last meeting, a linkage agreement between Sarah Area School District, Stone / Red Rock Job Corps. We have a field trip request. You're taking out C, the expulsion area. So we're on consent, survey of students. This had to do with Borough of Sayre surveying the student body regarding their parks and recreation. Presentation of the Sayre Area School District class of 2023. Athletics, volunteers. Finance, we have the transfers. Treasurer's report. Tax report. Purchase of a delay of game clocks. Purchase of new stage curtains. For both buildings. Yep. Memorandum of understanding. In Sayre School District class. We have to take out proposed funding. That's the year end. Giving Mr. Claypool the authorization to make necessary year-end budget transfers in preparation for the annual audit. Solicitor fee agreement. Annual authorization to take action for special circumstances as needed for the superintendent to be authorized to make arrangements. Proposed restructuring and the appointment of personnel necessary for the 23-24 school year. Accepting a bid from Anthony J. Jamarino and Associates, amount of $728,000 upgrades, 6 classrooms. For employment, need to roll call. Informational, this area school district induction program. That's it for the consent. Sorry for all those changes. Can I get a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can we get an explanation on the linkage agreement?
I'm getting it there too.
Page 2.
I'll make sure I'm clear. So the linkage agreement is between the Keystone Red Rock Job Corps. It gives us the opportunity to support students in need. Dr. Tejan and Mrs. Ely and I worked with the company for Job Corps. It's both a day treatment program as well as a program that houses students overnight if they need that. They work right alongside with us for students 16 years of age or older to complete their graduate credits and get job opportunities within communities and get them through to graduation. And the program is at no cost to the district for any student that wants to utilize it and parent that wants their child to go to it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or discussion?
Got a question, Mr. Petrini, on the number, the MOU on the plastic unit 17. I guess what I have is a little bit of, is this going to duplicate what we're doing right now with SOLA, or, I'm guessing there's probably a few more benefits that I'm not seeing.
So the IU runs the Equip online program, so we manage SOLA and oversee the programming, and we take care of attendance and all of those other components. Equip is the curriculum that we use from, and they use it across the 4 counties within the IU, and they oversee all of those pieces.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Any
So it's not just the 6 rooms, I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that those other pieces are in here as well.
And I wanted to add that my understanding is that the bid, or the acceptance for the stage curtains, including the rigging here at the high school.
Stage curtains includes the rigging here at the high school. They felt the rigging was okay at Snyder. So everybody looked up and back.
Thank you very much for that explanation. Anything else? All in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so roll call items. Start with the bills. I'd like to recommend the board approve the bills. So moved. So I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second?
Yes. It was.
Any discussion on the bills?
We'll begin with Mrs. Wagner.
Yes, except I abstain on number 2, please.
Ms. Alston. Yes. Mr. Cole.
Yes.
Mrs. Clement.
Yes.
Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Shaw, you're muted.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Petrini.
Yes. So along the lines of the bills, the proposed final budget for 2023-2024, I would recommend the board approve. Proposed final.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any more discussion on the budget?
I just wanted to reemphasize that, once this is approved, it'll sit for 30 days at the district office for anyone to peruse if they would like to from the community. There might be adjustments or changes to it as well, and we'll come back to the board at the June 19th meeting for a final vote.
Thank you very much.
And we'll begin with Mrs. Alston. Yes. Mr. Cole.
Yes.
Mrs. Clement.
Yes.
Mr. Shaw.
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Petrini.
Yes. So the next, for roll call vote was a recommendation for results of the expulsion. So I'd like to recommend the board approve the recommendation by Megan S. Wells Esquire regarding the expulsion hearings held on Thursday, April 27th, as presented.
Oh, sorry, that's right. Apologies.
So moved.
Second?
So we have a motion and a second. All right, any discussion? Close it.
So the recommendation to the board for student 270005 will be for an expulsion for 1 year, and also to complete the terms and conditions outlined by the hearing officer. The recommendation from the hearing officer to the board from student 260174 is for expulsion for up to 2 years and a completion of the terms and conditions outlined by the hearing officer.
Any other discussion?
We'll begin with Mr. Cole.
I'm going to vote yes, but I also want to make a quick comment too. This is a sad thing that we have to do. But I hope that this gets voted.
Mrs. Clement.
Yes.
Mr. Shaw.
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner.
Yes.
Ms. Alston. Yes. Mr. Petrini.
Yes. Thank you very much. So the last thing we have for our roll call agenda is motion to approve the personnel, professional personnel as presented. Recommend that the board approve. Motion. Motion and a second.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
We'll begin with Mrs. Clement.
So motion is approved, and I just wanted to share with the board that the three members under letter B, the professional employment, are here tonight in the audience. I'd like to introduce them to the board. So first on the agenda is Sarah Condon. Sarah, she would wave or somebody there. Second, as most of you know, sitting on to her left is Jenny Riley. Sitting in front of Sarah is Audrey Nolte.
Welcome, folks, thank you very much. All right, so moving on with reports, high school principals report.
Hello, okay. Good evening. We started our Keystone testing today here at the high school. We will finish up with biology tomorrow. On Wednesday and Thursday of this week, we'll have the literature exam. Next Monday and Tuesday, we'll move on to the algebra exams. I just want to remind families that this is also for SOLA students that are taking these courses right now. They've all had, I've made contact with all of them. Most of them did show up today, but there were a few that did not. So if you're not sure if your student is on that list to take a test, please reach out to the main office and they can let you know if they're signed up and what days they need to be here. I just wanted to kind of give an update on the Sweet 360 program that we've been using here at the high school as part of our restorative practices to go along with those discipline measures. Mr. Howie and I met with the representative from the Sweet 360 program last week to discuss some improvements that they're making to their program. So we're looking ahead towards next year and using that again and trying to maybe utilize it in a little better capacity. There's some good improvements that they're making and maybe use it more so than we did this year. And the last thing, I just wanted to give a brief report on science standards. So the state of Pennsylvania is updating our science standards across all grade levels. This change is taking place over the course of the next 2 years. So this was year one in the 3-year implementation plan. So myself, Mr. Kroll, Mr. Craig, and Mrs. Amy from Snyder have been attending a series of workshops throughout this school year at the IU at the 2 different locations to learn about the changes and to start looking at potential resource and or curriculum needs for science classes. The key components of the changes are a focus on environmental literacy and sustainability, more inquiry-based presentation of topics, and the fact that technology and engineering will start appearing on the PSSA exams after that 3-year implementation. So just wanted to make families aware of that there will be some changes coming with that. And that's all.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Stewart. Anything, Mr. Howard?
No, sir.
Mrs. Murrow?
Good evening. PSSA testing and makeups are also completed at the elementary school. We finished with that last week. We had all but 2 students take those tests and complete them, so our percentage for attendance will be meeting the state requirement. Last Thursday, I'm very excited and proud to say there was a spring fling that took place at Snyder Elementary School through some work that was done by our committees. Just as on the evacuation drill day, I showed up and watched. It was all done and driven by staff. I had lots of comments and praises from parents who were just thrilled with the opportunity. So it's one of those days when you're extremely proud to be a principal. So thank you to all my staff that took care of that. Thank you to my secretaries today for their help as we're moving through our federal programs adjustments that needed to be completed. Title I, Title II, Title IV, and our consolidated applications were all submitted today. So thank you for the extra efforts that went into that as you do every day. We are also underway for our PVAS rostering. Those rosters will return to teachers. They have until next Friday to get those rosters complete. That's part of their evaluation process with regard to how many students in their classes make growth. The final round of end-of-year assessments to take place at Snyder, so it is a very busy place at this time. On Friday, we're very fortunate again to go to the exceptional athletes activities that are taking place at Athens, so thank you to the bus company and bus drivers for donating their time to do that. We're all very excited to partake in that opportunity. Thank you to PTG, the Scholastic Book Fair, the big one, the buy one, get one free, the BOGO sale, was very well received and attended on Thursday night as well. I can't express my appreciation enough to the Snyder PTG. It's a very small group of individuals who make sure that our kids are very well taken care of. So even if you can only volunteer maybe an hour or two a year, I know it seems like very small, but it would be very much appreciated. Our group is really struggling to do all the things that they need to do with such a small amount of people. So they go above and beyond all the time, but it would also be nice to have some extra hands. If you need more information, please call me in the office or talk with Missy Van Duzer. Either one of us would be glad to give more explanation with regard to that. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Morano.
You're welcome.
Yes, Mr. Cole?
All right, thank you, Mr. Petrini. I just want to pass along that live chats are going along well. With the PSBA outreach staffing office, if anybody needs to get in contact with them, you know, if you have like a question or something involving a state issue or any questions, there are staff available Tuesdays from 10 till 11, Wednesdays 11 till noon, and Thursdays from 2 until 3 p.m. Last week, they opened up the Pennsylvania School Safety Initiative, which is a totally on-site facility so that they can help combat, or if you want to just say keep the school safe from active shooters, other incidences where safety is in peril, basically. And starting on January, oh my gosh, I don't want to go that quick. July the 10th, they will be starting up to develop times for you know, law enforcement agencies and all the school districts to set up times so that they can go through that and go through the demonstrations. So again, that is going to be one big plus down there, especially for the safety initiative. Coming up on October the 15th, the day before the PSBA School Leadership Conference begins, they will have a one-day session on safe and sound, the improving of school safety and student mental health. They just announced that. That's everything from PSBA's training.
NTCC.
Okay, that's up next. Just want to make a quick mention that that the award ceremony will be taking place on May 25th. First, the morning sessions at 9:30 a.m. and at 1 p.m. I know that's right when the SARE NTCC students will be graduating. So, and also one of the things that they'll be doing differently this year is they have purchased some gowns for the folks to wear, because they decided that when the kids would come, they didn't have like good dress clothes to wear and stuff, and a lot of the students that went there kind of felt embarrassed, so they did purchase some robes, so they will be able to be in the blue NTCC colors, basically, down there. And of course, we'll be getting another pin for the graduation as well.
That's at Towanda.
Yeah, that's down at, yes, that's down at the Towanda High School at 1 p.m. Beyond the corner. Let's see, got something else. Oh, yes, and quick reminder too, that Guthrie donated $2,000, so the Skills USA students could compete in Hershey back in April. That was a great plus for our students down there. And also Guthrie extended their agreement. They'll be having 12 LPMCs down in our program. So good things happening down in North Carolina. Thank you, Mr. Petrie.
most of it you can see on the paper that I just handed out. One of the big things that they're looking at, and everybody across the state and others are looking, is the staffing shortages. For the first time, the number of new teachers without full credentials is 6,366, outpaced those who earned certification, 5,101. For historical comparison, in 2013, there were over 16,000 fully credentialed teacher certifications issued and less than 2,000 emergency certifications issued in PA. It's a big difference, really losing there. This year, 5,101 certifications were earned. The IU continues to focus on a number of recruitment, retention, and preparation strategies. And the Department of Labor and Industry has a grant for teacher apprenticeship programs they're starting. So they're trying to come up with a lot of different ideas, trying to get more people into teaching certification. We definitely have quite a shortage. That's all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Atkins. We don't have anything left.
Okay, so I only had two last time, I had a long list, but since the last board meeting, I have attended many evening events, and two of the highlights over the last 2 weeks. May 4th, Mr. Howie, Mrs. Ely, and myself were at the Best Western enjoying or not the Best Western, sorry, yes, the Best Western, that's right. I didn't think the place I was at on May 4th. But we went to the top 10 banquet for the 3 schools in the valley here, so Waverly, Athens, and Sayre. The Sayre Rotary, the Rotarians put that event on every year, and it goes from one Rotary group to the next. And Sayre hosted this year, and Liz, our president, did a fantastic job, and we were able to have a Sayre grad, Treasurer Garrity, come and speak to the 30 students, the top 10 for each school, and Representative Pickett was there as well, and Mr. Howie participated, Mrs. Ely participated, and I was able to participate, and I thank you for that time, and just to, showcase those students and celebrate them and all of their achievements that they've had. And the other big event, Mrs. Morrell spoke of, was the Spring Fling. So that was last Thursday, so 2 Thursdays in a row. So last Thursday, I walked out my front door and turned my head to the left, and I'm lucky enough to live right there, so I didn't need to get in my vehicle and drive over to Mrs. Morrell's spot. And a good thing I didn't, because there wasn't a parking space to be found. Whether it was the upper lot, the lower lot, or anywhere on Mohawk, and including Larch, it was so full, from food trucks to ice cream trucks to reading. We had an author there. There were art projects happening. The field was full. I think your driveway was double lined with cars. People were parked out front. There were so many parents and students having a great time at the elementary school. And then I said to Mrs. Morrell, who put this all together? And it was a team of teachers that put the entire event together. So from their committee work, once every 4th Wednesday, that committee in the fall said, we're going to have a spring fling. And then they worked every 4th Wednesday to pull the event together. And that took a lot of effort and time to do, and I thank them and appreciate that. They reached out to the community relations team, so we were guest readers and got to go over and have a little reading nook. I did not sit in a rocker, because my hair's not that color yet, I don't think. So I did stand to read my book, and I got to share David Craven's Quit, which is one of my favorite books to read. So I enjoyed that, Ms. Morrell, so thank you and your teachers for that event. So that's all.
Thank you very much. So the only thing we have for future meetings is next curriculum instruction committee meeting will be held on Wednesday, June 7th, 5:30, conference room of the district offices.
And then committee meeting schedule will come out at the first August meeting. So this is the last one for this week.
Thank you very much. All right, so with that, does anybody have anything else? Move to adjourn. Have a motion, have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second,